The former Green Bay Packers legend is accused of being part of a scheme that funneled welfare funds to him and projects where he had a vested interest. However, Favre is not alone, as the state's largest ever public corruption case involves the misappropriation of more than $77 million intended for the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program.
Let's not forget who we're dealing with here.
New text messages show the pressure former NFL quarterback Brett Favre was putting on then Mississippi Governor Phil Bryant. Favre requested money for an indoor football practice facility.
The very serious allegations that have come out.
And tonight there are text messages from one of the state's most famous sons that allegedly have him caught up deep in the scandal. NFL Hall of Famer Brett Favre is facing questions tonight of whether he knowingly took $5 million of state welfare money to build a new volleyball facility for his daughter's team 5 years ago at her university and his alma mater.
The lengthy reporting on the matter.
One of those text messages from 2017 published by Mississippi Today, let's go ahead and show that to you. It shows that Brett Favre asked the head of a nonprofit handling welfare funds, quote, "If you were to pay me, is there any way that the media could find out where it came from and how much?"
And the major players involved.
Sadly, I also lost an investment in a company that I believed was developing a breakthrough concussion drug I thought would help others. And I'm sure you'll understand why it's too late for me, because I've recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's. This is also a cause dear to my heart.
Recently, Brett Favre shared this news in a hearing to the House and Ways Committee. Now, the journalist who broke the Favre story, Anna Wolfe, well,
it was just a remarkably impressive piece of investigative journalism that went on to win a Pulitzer last year. But since then, as NBC News correspondent Ken Delanian explains, the reporter has been embroiled in a lawsuit that might land her in jail.
This is the kind of corruption that Mississippians know all too well.
You heard correctly.
Adam Ganeshow is the editor of the paper.
You can't just win a Pulitzer unless there's real impact.
2 days after the Pulitzer announcement, we got the first threat of legal action.
NBC News would then go over former Governor Phil Bryant.
Bryant did not initially sue over the newspaper's prize-winning reporting. Instead, he brought the case over how the reporting was later described, including when the newspaper's CEO said Bryant embezzled funds, which is not true. He was never charged, and there's no indication he's under criminal investigation. Bryant's attorney, Billy Quinn, says that was the last straw.
So here we are to give, one of their favorite words, accountability to the situation. Well, the rabbit's got the gun now.
Quite a harrowing line from Bryant's attorney, if I do say so myself. It is unthinkable that a journalist could be imprisoned for doing her job, but that is where we are at. And via womeninjournalism.org, a Mississippi court has issued a controversial mandate requiring Wolfe and her colleagues at Mississippi Today to reveal their confidential sources in a defamation case by the former Governor Phil Bryant. Wolfe and her editor are appealing the ruling as we speak. As they wrote, and I 1,000,000% agree with here, if upheld, this order not only jeopardizes the safety and anonymity of these sources, but also sends a worrying message to journalists across the country. Women Press Freedom calls on the Mississippi Supreme Court to overturn this court order and reaffirm the essential role of a free press in a democratic society. Kelly McBride spoke with USA Today. She is the Senior Vice President and Chair of Craig Newmark Center for Ethics and Leadership at the Poynter Institute.
In our country, anybody can sue anybody, and people sue journalists often. And it's going to cost Mississippi Today a fair amount of money to hire the lawyers to defend this lawsuit. And in this particular case, when someone says that they're not trying to punish good journalism, but they're suing a reporter and they are a public official, unless they're alleging that the reporter got the facts wrong, that's libel, right? The defamation just means you made me look bad. And so when somebody is simply alleging that, like, you made me look bad, it's hard to see, if that person is a public official, how that's not punitive. He says it's not punitive, but for a public official to claim that it's inappropriate for a journalist to hold that person accountable for their actions if it makes them look bad, that seems antithetical to public service in a democracy.
There was also this from ESPN's Mark Fainaru-Wada, a fellow journalist. The governor wants all of Wolfe's notes. He wants her emails. He wants her confidential sources. And the judge has ordered, at the very least, that Wolfe & Co. show him what they've got so he can determine its relevance to the case. More via Wada. Either way, Wolfe and her boss have said there's no way they're giving up confidential sources. They say they would rather defy the court and face possible jail or probably more likely see their news organization get hammered with substantial damages. There is another wrinkle in this, and it is while they have been saying, rightfully, that they would risk, going to jail and what have you, it is imperative to know the judges in this case. Because while the editor is saying that their appeal is politically perilous, 4 of the court's justices have been named and appointed, rather, by the former governor, Phil Bryant.
Are you willing to go to jail?
Yeah.
It's real. It's scary, but something I think we feel very strongly about.
Wolfe would ironically say to NBC, if one of us goes to jail, we will be the first person to go to jail in the Mississippi welfare scandal. How can I make promises to sources that I'm going to keep them confidential if this is possible? Which is a very fair question. In an opinion piece from Mike Florio of PFT, sarcastically writing, really, what better way to put a bow on a welfare scandal in one of the poorest states in the country than to have the reporter who exposed it be the first one to go to jail? Let's see if Mississippi SCOTUS does the right thing or the predictable thing. Well put. To be clear, to win a defamation lawsuit, a public figure has to show that someone published false info with actual malice or a reckless disregard for the truth. Quinn, Bryant's lawyer, said that's why he needs the newspaper's internal emails and names of confidential sources, something journalists are loath to ever provide, rightfully so. The order asks that the materials first be handed to the judge who will decide whether any of the evidence is relevant to a claim of defamation. Wolfe, speaking with Delaney, wanted to make it clear getting sued makes her job way more difficult, but also it remains unclear that the country's poorest state, including over 1,400 families and over 2,500 individuals, are in fact receiving federal welfare grants administered by Mississippi, a state where about 550,000 people live in poverty. It just hasn't been proven yet that they are getting those funds. The tactic those doing the suing are using is really quite obvious at this point. Mississippi Today operates, like many other newsrooms and newspapers, on a budget. They need a substantial amount of said budget to pay for legal fees. This is a systematic dismantling of a local news outlet. There's no other way to describe it, wrote Mike D. Sykes II of For the Win, which is a sister, not station, a sister site inside of the network of USA Today. Look, I think the points are very clear. I think you know where I stand. Everyone should be on the side of the media, and I don't care who it is, okay? If someone is sourcing info such as this, where it is and appears to be unprecedentedly true, that this is what happened, and the whole reason, it appears, via his attorney, Mr. Quinn, that they are suing is because the CEO of the newspaper said a word that she shouldn't have. And they are really hammering home the point, and it is true, that there was no embezzlement scheme. That is what they are relying on. But more importantly, this is a huge red flag when it comes to our Constitution. I know that we have covered how Donald Trump wants to be dictator for a day, how he wants to rewrite the Constitution. I get it, okay? But if they are going to do this, it is a direct violation, in my view, of the United States Constitution and the freedom of the press. And what this will do is set a very, very dangerous precedent. Because what do the most powerful people not want coming out? Think about it. Leaks. They do not want leaks coming out that will paint them in a negative light and have many folks in the electorate lose trust in them, whether it is a CEO or a politician, anywhere in between and outside of, what have you. They do not want this to happen because it will damage their reputation, damage their careers, and maybe even damage public trust. And I know that we are at the point and at this impasse where public trust in government institutions are eroding, rightfully so, because they don't answer to us who vote them in. They answer to their donors and the 1%. But if this does happen, I need to make this very clear. It is not just Anna Wolfe. It is not just her editor. It is not just the paper. It is open season on every single media institution. And if you really want those who put 10 toes in the sand, hands, what's the line? In the ground when it comes to the sourcing, the researching, the fact-checking, to get all this information out. And if you don't want that to happen anymore, then side with the Mississippi Supreme Court. Me personally, it's important to know these things. And I hope you feel the same way. If you can and are willing, please become a paid member here at TYT Sports. And or go to tyt.com/join. In addition, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate it. Have a great day.